I don't even know where my phone is. The phone experiment continues. Hello and welcome back to The Commonplace. My name is Autumn, and if you don't know, I have a dumb phone. Although I will say I just call it a phone now because it does exactly what its purpose is. It calls people, and occasionally it will send a 3-word text, but really it just calls people. And so the phone never needs to be on me unless I feel the need to make a phone call or happen to hear it ringing. And guess what? Not that many people call you when you have a dumb phone. So today I wanted to do an update. I said that I would try to do them every month, and here we are 2 months in and I'm just now getting to it. But I really wanted to take time to start making some observations, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't in this like dumb phone high, or that I wasn't having this placebo effect from going off the smartphone or something before I started noting my observations. But if you do not know, I had 2 questions going into what I called a 6-month experiment, but I will tell you now, not going back. And they were, one, a question about what are we doing in our formation when we cultivate a love and desire for convenience, because smartphones do make our lives more convenient, is typically how we use them. And when we do that, are we learning to love keeping company with machines over people? And is it making our relationships with people, i.e. maybe our children, more difficult because they seem so inconvenient sometimes? That was one part of it. And the second part was, is it cultivating a lie that we are like God in ways that we are not? Does the smartphone help us think that we are omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent? And for today, the first observation I want to bring in, just from what has happened with me in my life in the last 2 months, is more to that first question about convenience and do we love machines more? Are we gaining this preference for machines over people? And I know with everything that I say to the people around me as I do this, the gut reaction is, of course not, Autumn. I don't love my machines more than I love my people. And I hear you, but I think there are sneaky ways that we are actually learning to love machines more, and we will not realize it until maybe 2 generations from now, 3 generations from now, I don't know when. But I do think C.S. Lewis was onto something in The Abolition of Man when he talked about using technology to master parts of our nature, which will eventually end with the abolition of man. There will be no more persons. We will no longer be persons. And that's a frightening idea. So to that end, let's get started. Here's what I've realized. There is a picture in everyone's mind when I talk about people who like machines or who don't like to be around other people. And it is that picture of the 40-year-old man who plays video games all day in his mom's basement. And every classical mom is like, well, that is not what I am going to be doing with my children. And I know, but I'm actually not talking about that very extreme idea that exists in our culture and in our language. Instead, I want to ask you a couple of questions that might reveal that, oh, I do often choose the machine because it's easier, and it does make me a little less inclined to do the people thing. So, if you're ready to take this quiz with me, which I would be most grateful if you did, let's talk about it. Number 1. Do you choose the option of the drive-up pickup at Target or the grocery store so you can move through your to-do list at an inhuman speed, so that you can avoid bumping into anyone, so that you can show up in your pajamas and not have to present yourself to others, or so that you can avoid germs? Number 2, do you feel a little bit annoyed when you have to call a place, call a person to place an order, schedule an appointment, what have you, because you cannot text it, email it, do it online, or sign into a portal in order to get the thing you want? Are you frustrated when you have to get out of your car and go in somewhere because there is not a curbside pickup option, or there is not a no contact at your door delivery option? And lastly, do you either comment on social media or text your friend when they have great news like they're having a baby, or terrible news like their sister has cancer? And do you think that counts as being a good friend, even though you did not hear your friend's voice, see their face, or touch them? If you answered to, yeah, maybe a little bit, to any of those questions, you can now join me on this conversation about how we might be forming ourselves towards machines instead of people. If you said no, well then I guess you're just fine. So here's the thing. I would say I am probably an average American woman in terms of I would sometimes do a Target pickup, I would sometimes place my grocery order online. I would definitely think I was a good friend because I remember to text everyone about everything just to make sure they're doing all right, or to celebrate with them. And I would send nice long ones and all sorts of things, and I would do these things pretty regularly, like most people with a smartphone. Without the smartphone for the last 2 months, I have been forced into having the option to choose the person. Sometimes I don't make the stop at Target because my kids are a mess from the trail. They're covered in mud and I actually don't want to drag them through Target because they just got over a cold, and all of that is fine and fair. I just have to opt out of getting the thing at Target. I just don't get it. If I'm out running errands and I think, oh, you know what, it would be nice to stop and pick up a meal from that place and take it home for everyone, I actually did try to call 411. I need to tell you guys that. I remembered as a child that 411 was a place you could call and they would give you information like other people's telephone numbers. It doesn't exist anymore, in case you were wondering. So no, you have to park in the city, find parking, get out of the car, go into the shop, talk to the person, order the food, wait for it, talk to more people, and then get back to your house, right? And all of that involves a lot of touch and interaction with people. And so now I have no option but to do that. I have to choose the people, and everything all of a sudden feels a lot more human. I can't escape it. I can't do things from my phone to make my life easier in a way that I don't have to talk to someone, or I don't have to look at someone, or I don't have to hear their voice or touch their hands or anything. I'm actually very much back into face-to-face life with people. And what I've noticed more than anything is that is with my friends. The dumb phone I have is a pain to text on. My birthday was recently, and I actually started to not like my people because they were texting me birthday messages and I had to type it all back out to them. Thank you. I can't do that anymore. It's just a pain to text people, and it's good. It's made the habit I don't want really difficult. So I call people. And you know what happens when you call people? If you have a friend who say they're pregnant, or they're in the postpartum period, or they just had a C-section, all things that happen in my life pretty regularly in this season of life, it is very easy for me to feel good that I have checked in on them and asked if they needed anything, and they've texted back, no. But I get to ask those questions, one, when it's convenient for me, when I have a second. Not if they call me and they need me right then, but when I plan for it to happen. Secondly, I don't really find out too much more information than what I ask for. Now that I am calling everyone in my life or just showing up on their doorsteps to see them, I find out so much more about my friends in the course of a conversation about how are you recovering from your C-section, or how is your first trimester nausea doing. I find out a lot more about what they're scared about, what's overwhelming to them, what they're really excited about, what funny things their kids said. I'm actually much more in relationship with the people in my life because I'm not using a machine to get to them. I know, you're going to say, but you used a phone to call them. I did, and like I've said before in my first video, I cannot draw a perfect line around this. I also cannot go to everyone's houses. So I am grateful for the technology that I can use in a good way to get the good thing, all of it done in the best way that most honors the image bearer on the other side and myself. Ha. But in doing that, like with everything else that I can't do with the smartphone, I actually have to choose less and do it better, because I can't do it all, and I can't sidestep the personhood of things in order to use the machine to kind of check it off. Now I know I can't run the line everywhere, and I'm not saying that I am. I'm just saying that in this first 2 months without the smartphone, one of my largest observations has been that I am so much more in contact with people I didn't even realize I wasn't beforehand. And I had a patron in my Patreon, which you should come and join, tell me multiple times, she was really adamant that I needed to read the short story by Forrester called The Machine Stops. And this patron always has good things to say. So by the second or third time she told me I really needed to read it, particularly once she found out I was going down to a normal phone, I thought, okay, I'm gonna print it off and I'm gonna read it. I will link it below, because if you would like a chill down your spine, it will give you one. I'm gonna set the stage for you. So in the future, it's dystopian. Everyone lives underground in this thing called the machine, and you have a pod. You do not go outside. You do not touch the material natural world. You do not have ideas that are worth having up there. You just stay in your individual pod all alone. All alone. And in your pod is everything that you need. You get your food there, you get your medical care there, you can control the temperature, the airflow, your clothing comes to you, you sleep there, you toilet there, all of it happens in this one place. But you are so well connected. Wouldn't you know, you can Zoom, you can FaceTime, you can social media, you can hop on at your scheduled time to tell everyone your ideas on video. I know, I'm doing it right now. But all of this happens in this one little room, and they've never been more connected. There's never been more ideas shared across the boundaries of the world. It sounds like all these positive things that we say about technology, that things like the smartphone make our lives more convenient and also allow us to be more connected. That'll have to be a video for a different day. I'm like, are we actually connected? But what happens in the story is this woman has to leave her little pod because her son wants to speak to her in person. And so she leaves and she has to travel by this air travel machine, and they hate it. Everyone hates it. They don't like the germs. They don't like that they can hear other people swallowing. They don't like that they can touch skin if they bump, or if someone drops something, someone else is going to figure out if they're going to pick it up for them. It's awkward. It's an uncomfortable interaction. Do you know what psychologists say about the coming generations who use all these devices all the time? They can't have conversations. They don't know how to engage with ideas with other people in real time because they can't erase it and retype it. We have become so formed to the machine that we actually don't know how to be people with people anymore. That's really sad. And so in this, I was completely, gutted by this short story. I thought, yeah, I see how this happens. You learn to dislike the natural peopleness of life, of reality, because you like the clean, orderly nature. So much faster. It's so much more efficient. It's so much better to just do the machine. And I will say in these first 2 months, I have found that I am much more up against people, and it's always kind of inconvenient than it was before. And guess what? It's also a lot better. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what has caused certain changes, right, in this experiment, but I can say that there does seem to be enough time for everything, and everything moves a little bit more slowly without the phone, and yet still it gets done. I'm a little more responsible, probably a little more on top of things. I'm also probably a little bit better at problem solving on the go right now, or just sucking it up and doing the difficult thing, dragging all the kids into the store because I forgot something. And I do think those tiny moments that are not, I would not call those suffering, but I do think that kind of regular difficulty in a life actually does grow muscles that are really necessary to be able to be long suffering and steadfast with children. And we can kind of remove those. We can make everything really easy on ourselves, and in doing that we then start to despise the people-y things around us. And lastly, I think the thing that's really been turning around in the back of my mind with this experiment is that, are we comfortable with the idea of good enough? This is something that I think does come around in the tech world, does come around in this convenience-oriented world where it's not the best, but it's good enough. We can't really see each other on FaceTime clearly, but it's good enough. And this is something that happens in the machine stops. Everything is just good enough. The quality isn't the best, the relationships aren't the best, the exchanges aren't the best, but they're good enough, so we'll just keep going. But we were actually made for something. Good enough might actually not be good enough long term. And I'm not calling for everything that we do has to meet this perfect standard, because we are people, and like I was saying, the people-y things often are imperfect. But I do think there's an element, particularly within the machine stops, where people kept accepting good enough for the sake of convenience, for the sake of ease, for the sake of safety, to the point where they were no longer living. They thought they were. They had access to ideas, they could continue in their work, they could check in with the people they knew, but they didn't have life together. They never had to be with people. Maybe that's it. If you can do most of your life with the technology around you without ever having to be with people, maybe that's the warning sign. Maybe that's what it is. But there it is. That's my first update on the first 2 months about the convenience thing. Yes, I think convenience is forming us towards machines. I think that it is making a preference for what is clean cut, and easy, which is never going to be what people are, and that is actually a dangerous thing. And maybe you should just consider how you are choosing to opt into the people life instead of opting into the convenience life. I'll see you guys soon.